I've been asked two very interesting questions over the past couple of days. The first one was, will the Mirri-Maz-Dur prophecy be completed when Daenerys bears a living child? And the second was, where do you think Dan and Dave in the show will take Daenerys Targaryen and Jon Snow's relationship in Season 8? This video is going to explore the symbolism we see reflected through visions, symbols, and prophecy in the Song of Ice and Fire and the Game of Thrones. Is it possible that Daenerys is going to die in childbirth? It got me thinking, wouldn't it be bittersweet if Jon relived the same moment that Ned did with Lyanna? It's definitely possible that this type of scenario can happen because of the concept of Ouroboros, also the snake that eats its own tail. The Ouroboros is a Greek word meaning tail devourer and is one of the oldest mystical symbols in the world. The Ouroboros has several meanings interwoven into it. Foremost is the symbolism of the serpent biting, devouring, or eating its own tail. This symbolizes the cyclical nature of the universe, creation out of destruction and life out of death. The Ouroboros eats its own tail to sustain its life, in an eternal cycle of renewal. It is sometimes depicted as a circle or a figure 8 as well. The serpent biting its own tail is first seen as early as 1600 BC in Egypt as a symbol of the sun, and it represented the travels of the sun disk. From then, it moved on to the Phoenicians and then to the Greeks, who gave it its name, Ouroboros, which means devouring its own tail. In mythology, the Ouroboros is a symbol representing the Milky Way galaxy, and myth refers to a serpent of light residing in the heavens. The Milky Way is this serpent and viewed at the galactic central point near Sagittarius, the serpent that eats its own tail. Many ancients used the galaxy to calculate cosmic and Earth cycles. We see this symbol many times in the story in different ways, including during the flashback with Bran and the Children of the Forest when they made the Night King. The symbol the Night King left with the corpses beyond the wall. You can even argue that the symbol of House Targaryen is doing the same thing, the three heads of the dragon fighting to eat its own tail. We also see this reflected in the Dany and Misa scene and when Jon Snow is gasping for air to survive the Battle of the Bastards. Think about Daenerys Targaryen and Jon Snow's journeys. They are both coming full circle. Daenerys is so close to getting the Iron Throne to only realize that there's something much more important, which is to fight with Jon and experience love in this incredibly difficult time. And Jon is fighting to save the realm, willing to sacrifice himself only to find out that he was someone else all along, someone very special, the heir to the Iron Throne. This completely changes the landscape of the story. The Song of Ice and Fire is a story about birth, life, death, and rebirth. History repeats itself over and over and the wheel keeps on spinning, removing all in its place. The Ouroboros appears in many cultures as well, for example, the serpent Jormungand of Norse legend, one of the three children of Loki and Angrboda. And Jormungand grew so large that it can encircle the world and grasp its own tail with its teeth. In Hinduism, you have the dragon circling the tortoise, which supports the 4 elephants that carry the world, which relates to the story happening in the Eye of the Blue-Eyed Giant Macumber, and this is what we see with the astrolabe in the beginning sequence of A Game of Thrones, with the Baratheon, Stark, Lannister, and Targaryen sigils. Birth and death are connected, and we know that Daenerys Targaryen had a stillborn child with Khal Drogo. But if this prophecy is to be true, how will she see him again? The Mirri-Maz-Dur prophecy states, when your womb quickens again and you bear a living child, then he will return and not before. But we gotta remember that Khal Drogo is long gone, he's dead, but she did see him in the show version of the House of the Undying Vision, which begs the question, what did she actually see? When Dany enters the throne room in the Red Keep, which she has never seen before, she's moving towards the Iron Throne and then never touches it. The Red Keep is partially destroyed and it's snowing from above, but she doesn't get into the temptation of something she believes is her birthright because she hears the cries of her children. This is the life part of her vision. We then see her beyond the wall walking away from a throne in a storm, which is the death part of her journey. The dream of the Iron Throne is in the past, like a dream of spring. When the sun rises in the west and sets in the east, when the seas go dry and the mountains blow in the wind like leaves, when your womb quickens again and you bear a living child, then he will return and not before. If you read that metaphorically, the seas go dry in A Dance with Dragons. Remember Daenerys' last chapter when she talks of the Dothraki Sea going dry and the grass is dying off? That's the first part. And the pyramids of Meereen can be the mountains in the wind like leaves, as the siege has ended and she makes an agreement to finally leave for Westeros with the help of Yara and Theon, and more than likely in the book's Victarion. But that doesn't mean we will have a similar ending as the previous stories. At the end of all of this, I believe the wheel will be broken, but it will be broken and it will have come at a great cost. Jon will have lost love 3 times. First, he had to leave Arya behind and his family because of his status as a bastard. Then, he found true love with Ygritte and then she died. And I know some of you like the idea of Lightbringer not being an actual sword, but perhaps this moment, the birth, is Jon's Lightbringer moment, and only then can he go on to defeat the Night King because he has something to protect and live for his own child. Jon has never been in it for himself, but in this moment, he is the only real option to fight the Night King with Daenerys dead. Some say that's too sweet of an ending. To me, if it ended like this, it would be bitter, which is why the story will keep on shrinking after 7 seasons of expansion. We are going to experience one last intense and emotional journey for these characters. Jon will have truly understood the sacrifice of the men protecting him made at the Tower of Joy. Lyanna and Rhaegar sacrificed everything for each other so they can be together no matter the consequences. Ned made an incredible sacrifice protecting Jon from his best friend and even kept his secret from his own wife. And even possibly Benjen, who may have knew this secret, might have sacrificed his life to prove himself at the Wall, so later on people might come to respect Jon, or if Jon chose to become a member of the Night's Watch, that things might have been easier with his presence. You don't know what you would be missing. Remember when Jon was ready to give up that opportunity of becoming a father or marrying someday, never falling in love? I mean, we can hate Rhaegar and Lyanna all we want, but to think of how much that relates to what Benjen is saying, making your own choices, whether it's right or wrong, is still your own choice. It's a bitter pill to swallow because Jon truly does deserve happiness. He is one of the few characters who is willing to risk himself for the good of the people. But how can you recover from something like that? That would break many of us and many of the characters we see within the Song of Ice and Fire and the Game of Thrones. But like I said, things tend to happen in threes, happen in cycles, the cycles of life, death, and rebirth. Jon was a bastard most of his life, and then he let the boy die and the man be born, and perhaps he really does become Aegon Targaryen, the prince that was promised. A Song of Ice and Fire is a mirror image of what happens in the universe: expansion and contraction, creation and destruction, life and death. So in conclusion, I believe it is possible that Daenerys is able to see Khal Drogo again to find that peace, that temptation that she never gave into before to enter the Nightlands, but she can only achieve this through death, with the birth of a living child. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a comment in the comment section or a like. And if you do want to see more of these kinds of videos or chat more about the theories that you enjoy, feel free to subscribe to the channel and follow me on Twitter @AzorAHype. Also, a big thank you to those of you who support the channel on Patreon and have made a donation to the GoFundMe for Con of Thrones 2018. If you do want to help or support the channel, the links will be in the description of this video. Thank you so much for watching. Hype and love.
How much for your little clam?